All right. Welcome, everyone. I think we are live.
Hey.
It looks like we might be live. I heard Andrew. I heard Dominie. So I think we're good to go. All right. Well, welcome to IoT Happy Hour. I think this is number 19, as I've been keeping track.
Pretty good. Almost at 20.
Almost at 20. Andrew, I haven't shared this with you yet, but I think you might actually be the star of episode 20. I heard you were doing some hacking on a moisture sensor of some type, so I'll let you get into that in just one moment.
Sure.
But I'm David. I'm developer advocate here at Balena. I'm joined today by Andrew and Dominie. Andrew, I'm going to give you a quick second to say hello first, because then we will devote more time to allow Dominie to introduce herself.
Right on.
Andrew?
Hey, everyone. Andrew Nem, lead content strategy at Balena, making all kinds of yummy, delicious web, video, audio goodies for folks. And now, with a little drum roll, I'd like to introduce our honored guest.
Yes.
We don't have a soundboard yet.
No, so we don't have a set.
Gotta use our hands.
In that studio of his, there's no soundboard.
Yeah, everything but that.
I'm not coming back next time until there's a soundboard.
Well, there it is. Okay, now we have to buy one. All right, Dominie, you want to say hello and give like a sort of quick introduction? Obviously, we'll do a deeper dive in a little bit here, but give us a quick background and hi.
Yeah, hi. Hey, David. Hi, Andrew. And thanks for having me here today. So my name is Dominie, and I run the IoT London meetup group, which Balena is our partner of. My background is largely in events. So I've been working on IoT events for the past 6-7 years, from the early days when IoT was kind of all hyped up and everyone was super excited. So yeah, I can go into more detail about those events now, or we can come back to that. But yeah, I'm based in London, and yeah, here I am.
You are currently based in London, but if I recall, you actually only recently returned to London. Is that correct? Where did you spend your time previously?
I lived in San Francisco for 3 years. So I've been back a couple of years now, but I've been working for the IoT consortium that are based in New York. So I work with them currently, so I've got quite a good, well, I try to have a good view of what's going on both coasts and then over here in London as well.
Very cool. Hey, so is this the smallest meetup that you've ever been part of? Because technically we're kind of like a meetup, right? Are we are here?
Well, I don't know how many people are listening in. If it could be thousands.
That's our hope.
Well, I hope we have thousands. I'm not entirely sure that we have thousands.
I'm sure we do.
The more questions we ask, that'll help get there. Not just from David and myself, but also all the folks on the chat. So if you have any questions for Dominie or any of us, really, just go ahead and pipe that into the chat, and we'll ask away.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll get those filtered through. So yeah, I think Dominie is probably used to a little bit larger audience. How many folks, Dominie, is the IoT London group? I know it's one of the largest in the world, or maybe the largest.
So globally, I think we're like the second or third largest IoT meetup in the world on meetup.com. We've got over 14,000 members now, which is amazing. And the meetup's been around since 2011. So yeah, it's a pretty special group, and it's a really engaged community. And what's great is you've got people that live and breathe IoT or tech is their day jobs, but then you've also got people that just maybe are, this is something that they like to do on the side, or they might be working for kind of a non-tech related industry and are looking to explore how they can perhaps use or implement some of this kind of technology to kind of enhance their current business. So it's a really diverse group, which I like, and everyone is very engaged. So yeah, it's exciting kind of meetup to be involved in. I only recently took it over from Alexandra actually back in June, but I've always kind of known of the IoT London meetup. And I got a lot of people kind of very excited for me to be taking on that that group. So yeah, we got to 100 meetups in June. So we're now coming into the 102nd, which is pretty impressive.
Super cool. I've been fortunate enough to attend remotely now. One of the, I suppose, byproducts of the pandemic has been, that these meetings have gone virtual. And so I've been fortunate enough to present with Kat, who's on our team as well, a couple of times now. So that's kind of, I guess, one positive outcome, at least in my perspective of the pandemic. But at some point, I suppose you'll be able to return, hopefully in the near future, to on the ground meetups, in which case I'm not going to be able to present anymore, but we'll send Kat.
You'll be on a telepresence robot.
Yeah, we can get the
That's
true. We can get the robot.
Of course.
You guys start building it now.
Yeah. So I put on screen there, down which side? That side. IoT London is the website. You can go on there and sign up for the newsletter, right? And I believe so. You have you're the one sending out those newsletters. So if anyone has tidbits they'd like to get included, make sure you sign up. Make sure you reach out to Dominie.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, I'm always on the hunt for any new exciting IoT projects, any crowdfunding campaigns, any hiring needs, or if you're looking for jobs. The beauty of the group is that there's no kind of hidden agenda. Like, all we're trying to do is bring together folks that are working in this space. So anything that you'd like to be featured, or if you want to participate in a future event, you can reach me at Dominie at IoT.London. We send out monthly newsletters, and they tend to kind of list any latest IoT news, crowdfunding campaigns, jobs that are relevant in this space. Obviously announcing kind of this next speakers for the next event. And yeah, lots of good information.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just created and put on screen. Is that correct?
Yes.
Dominie at IoT. Let me check my spelling. I think I got it. All right.
Good, man.
Perfect. So with that said, thank you for that intro, Dominie. I appreciate it. I think we can move on to my favorite segment of every show, which is What's on Your Desk. Now, Andrew, are you going to sing it for us?
How's Chris singing it? I did it incorrectly last time.
Yeah, you didn't do it correctly last week.
I guess
Chris isn't on the stream, so
a little bit of a what's on your desk. That sounds like Chris, right?
That's close, but not exactly like Chris. So I think he might be over in the comments. He can probably maybe share with us where you went astray on that. But
we're doing like an open call for jingles now or something.
Yeah, I know that's what we need. We need somebody to record us a spot, and then
I'm iteratively improving everyone.
Yeah. So, Andrew, I know you have something on your desk that you were going to show off as part of an unboxing. You still have that around?
Are we doing that today?
Well, we don't have to. That's why I'm asking.
I received from my lovely coworkers a balena fin.
What exactly is a balena fin? I think we talked about that previously on one of our episodes, but you're going to have to remind the audience.
You threw one of these onto your hot roof in Arizona, right?
Yeah.
This is our own hardware at Balena that we custom make within each box. Oh, sorry for crinklage. See, you caught me off guard here. I wasn't quite ready.
I apologize. Chris says you got a solid 5 out of 7 on your singing, by the way.
Oh, nice. Right on. So I still have yet to figure out what to do with this puppy, but look how beautiful that is. So I did not get the version with the heatsink. There is that option if you go to our shop on balena.io.
Yep.
So I am still in gawk at this amazing little bit of hardware here and figure out a really cool project to do with it.
If anyone has any ideas, drop them in chat. Let's see, what should we do with this balena fin? And Andrew, you're based in Oregon, so keeping that in mind from a climate perspective, from an environmental perspective, certainly I know you've got some gardening projects up your sleeve that are forthcoming, but let's see what the audience comes up with as ideas.
Yeah, send them over. One idea, whether it uses a fin or not, is we're working on a greenhouse over here, and I'm not quite sure if I want to run actual like direct line power to it. That's like extra wiring work that would be added, and we live in the Pacific Northwest, so we'd have to get it like permitted and put in conduit and weatherproof and all that. So a few of us, I think Mark just dropped a piece on a LoRaWAN network, right, using Basic Station a couple episodes ago. So I might look into something like that so I can monitor what's going on in the greenhouse and different parts of our garden and yard here.
Very cool. Well, Dominie, do you have anything interesting on your desk?
So
Kat very kindly,
Kat very kindly bought me an Inky Shot over the other day, but I've actually not put it together yet. But we have.
So that's good. That means it's in parts. So wait a minute. Yeah, show off.
And I'm like,
let's see it.
I don't know what to do.
Wait, is this a live demo of Inky Shot?
Well, it's not a live demo because it's not built yet.
It's not built. I mean, I can have a go, but I don't think I quite have the technical expertise probably required. But yeah, I'm hoping that I can get Kat on the phone at some point next week to help me set this up. But no, she brought that over. I have my balena t-shirt.
All right.
Also brought me a few little goodies, some treats and chocolate snacks, which was nice, but they're obviously gone. My desk is not so exciting. I'm a bit of a clean freak, so I like to have as little clutter as possible. So I tend to just have, although there is quite a lot of wires actually, but that's all.
So for those of you who don't know what Inky Shot is, we'll drop the link. Oops, that's not it. This one. It's our little daily quote messenger thing that's made out of an e-ink screen, and I think the best you want to do is probably a Pi Zero to make it like nice and compact.
I was just gonna say, so what are the rest of the components that she actually dropped off, Dominie? Do you have any? Are they near you?
This.
Okay.
And this. Oh. And this.
Okay, so can you hold that up a little bit closer so we can take a look at that thing?
So that's the e-ink screen.
Yeah,
which is impressive for that size, right? Like,
yeah.
Do you have a banana for comparison? Oh, you have a Pi Zero for comparison. There
a Pi Zero for comparison. That's the same thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that is the e-ink display, and if you can flip that Inky display over, so there's your GPIO headers. So it just sits right on top of it. It would work on a Pi 3 as well, but it's sized for a Pi Zero.
So the project itself, it basically, you set up a daily quote reader. It could be a word of the day. You can talk to a number of servers. That'll just give you that, and you can wake up to, maybe a new word for your vocabulary. Or there you go. Check out David's. If you have dreams, it is your responsibility to make them happen.
Yep.
All right, now you gotta live it.
I keep this one on my desk.
One thing to read it.
So the thing is it will update. It'll update daily, and I have a 3D printed case here that if
You're
Chris
not using.
or Kat or watching are going to yell at me for because I'm not using it, because I'm afraid to solder. But this actually retains the display after you pull the power on it. So you can see this thing is not plugged in, but yet it's on there. So I don't want to plug it back in because I really like this quote. And I'm afraid that when I plug it back in, it's going, I know it's going to download a new quote. And what if it's not as good? Then
you're not living the daily motivating quote part, man.
Exactly.
Daily.
So now I have to think about whether I want to build another one to, continue on with my daily motivational quotes. But I really like this one, so I don't know. I might have to buy another Pi Zero.
Hold on. Are you the kind of person who goes out to eat and then they will get new fortune cookies and open them until you get the fortune that you actually like?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Correct.
You're that person. All right.
Not the target audience then, potentially.
Oh, wow. All right. So
what about you, David? What's on your desk?
I got a new part, but it's actually quite similar to some parts I showed last week and then a few weeks prior. And this one comes courtesy of Jason.
Wait, is that the Intel jingle?
Yeah, I think that is.
Did I get that right? Okay.
So now this one came courtesy of Jason at Always AI, who has also been on the show previously. I had so I had the original. This is the NCS1, and it's what I had been using for my AI experiments. But he said, hang on a minute. That is going to be end of life pretty soon. And I haven't looked up exactly when that is. I don't know if it's going to be no longer supported in their OpenVINO distributions. But he was kind enough to send over model number 2 for new and improved inferencing. So I will need to get this installed and running. I'll need to check to see if anything needs to be done to the container on the Pi, but that'll be for next week. So maybe we'll have some new, better dog detection. So, yep, that's my desk. All right. Well, quick reminder before we dive deep here with Dominie. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. I've seen quite a few come through, so I'll take a glance at those in just a moment.
Questions or jabs come through?
Mostly jabs. I see, actually, they're not really questions.
I got fooled by the Dragon Ball Z reference.
Yeah, they got you with that.
Yeah, I'm like still bruised by that one. That's a lot. I shot KR.
Yeah, he says, take a picture. Well, it's not the same. I don't want a picture. I want my Inky shot to display exactly as it is. The picture is not the same. So
I think that's supposed to be like ingrained in your brain now. So you got it, and then it's kind of like on to the next one. But I get it. I might be the same.
Yeah. So, all right, Dominie. Well, let's take a deeper dive here into the work you've been doing with the IoT Consortium and kind of start picking your brain a little bit, because I know you've got a lot of knowledge in and subject matter expertise in some of the higher level things that I don't always cover here on the show. And the rest of the team, the hardware hackers, Andrew, we don't spend a whole lot of time on. So this is going to be super interesting to me. But can you tell us a little bit about, let's start with IoT Consortium. What are their goals? What's their mission? What are the kind of events they put on? That sort of higher level of who they are and what they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So the IoT Consortium is headed up by a guy called Greg Kahn. I first kind of worked with those guys years ago. Greg's always a fantastic speaker at events, so I always had him kind of sharing his insights at the events that I was running. But basically, the IoT Consortium, interestingly, started out as a meetup group in San Francisco, and this would have been going back like 7-8 years ago now. And it kind of pivoted a little bit and grew into a membership-based organization. And is now headed up by Greg, who's actually based in New York City. So it's quite nice because it's kind of spans both coasts as such. But it's a membership-based organization, and the whole mission really is to kind of facilitate partnerships between different industries. So I think what's quite interesting with IoT, and maybe why, I just think back like 5-6 years ago, there was all these stats like by 2020 there'll be like X billion amount of connected devices. We're all bored of hearing it, but I think it never really, it hasn't gone as quickly as people really thought. And I think one of the big stumbling blocks is that you're bringing together industries and sectors that perhaps haven't worked together. So if you're thinking about like a connected refrigerator, or like, just kitchen appliances in general, which now, are largely connected in some people's households, not in mine. But, you're bringing together kind of appliance manufacturers with technology software, or the likes of Amazon. And it's just bringing together different sectors or industries or companies that perhaps would never have crossed paths before. So that's what the IoT Consortium tries to do, basically, is kind of facilitate those sorts of partnerships. We've got some incredible members as part of the organization, a really diverse group. So it's, you know, you've got everyone from Avis Budget through to MasterCard, through to Procter & Gamble, Comcast, Verizon, Arm. It's really balanced between the big brands and the enterprises and the technology providers themselves. We operate in a range of verticals: connected home, connected health and wearables, mobility and transportation, banking and retail, smart cities. These are kind of the main ones, but we are doing more and more now in kind of the industrial manufacturing and supply chain space, and specifically looking at how IoT technology is helping certain industries kind of mitigate some of the impacts from COVID, and obviously just 2020 in general. So that's something that we're kind of focused on at the moment. But my role there is mostly just putting on different event platforms. We did an annual summit last year at the New York Times Center, which was really cool. I loved that venue. I'd never been there before. Those were the days where we could do in-person events. I really miss those days. But yeah, we do a lot of online and virtual panels and things like that as well, which just get great engagement. So it's a nice kind of group to be a part of.
Yeah, that's really cool. Let me just make sure I have the right URL before I plug it in. Is that ioftthings.org?
Yeah. Mm-hmm, okay. That's fine. Yeah.
Great.
Mm-hmm. So with so many different industries and use cases and folks joining every meetup, do you find it difficult to coordinate one big main idea, or does the subject matter tend to be like pretty high level where everyone can kind of have a say and integrate? Because sometimes you can go way deep, right? And all of a sudden, you alienate other folks.
Yeah, no, definitely. We tend to do most of kind of the events that we do. We tend to kind of hone in on a sector. We'll kind of, at the moment we're starting to think about like future of work and what that's going to look like when people are returning to work. And I think that actually spans, a lot of the different sectors that we cover. So if you think about the connected home, obviously that's going to kind of be impacted, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of new innovations that come out because more people are at home. But then, that then has a knock-on effect on, cities and transportation and mobility in general. So we tend to kind of look at a really hot theme, which might resonate with a lot of our members, and look at those tie-ins. So, where there might be a future opportunity if we can kind of provide a platform for folks to come together. But because we work with quite, in terms of kind of the level of people, they tend to be more high level. So they're looking for like partnerships, and they're more interested in those kind of high level ideas, I guess. They're not so involved in kind of the technology itself, but more about the applications.
Interesting. So the applications is actually something that I kind of wanted to talk about anyway. So that's a really good hopping off point as well. If you are one of those big companies that you mentioned, let's say you're Samsung, and I guess Samsung is maybe, a technology company in and of themselves anyway, but let's say you're in the refrigerator business and you already told me that you don't have a connected refrigerator, which I'm a little bit upset about, seeing as how you are an industry expert in IoT.
Whoa, but can't have data thrown at us all day long, man.
I know. I can't believe she doesn't have a connected refrigerator. No, I don't either. So, if you are at that high level, you're making the business decisions and you are in the strategic view of the organization. Do you find then that those individuals have to I guess, eventually bring their team of engineers to the table? Do they have to, as that filters down throughout the organization, do you and the IoT consortium get involved in any of those more technical matters, or does that typically remain internal in the silo of that organization? I'm just curious if it crosses over at all.
I think the organizational structures of a lot of these businesses, I definitely think, I think any business now has got an innovation team or a digital transformation team, or, many companies have like a chief innovation officer. And I think it's because over the last few years, particularly IoT technology has very much been kind of, there's been such a buzz around it, such big promises about how it can just transform industries. So I think that is your point. What's quite interesting is that organizational piece. So the hiring processes and the way that they organize, their CTO function or their CIO function, that's always been kind of I don't want to say a challenge, but something that a lot of organizations may have had to change in order to bring those technologies and those technical abilities, I suppose, more, to become more of a crucial part of that organization. But I know when I first started looking at kind of IoT, organizational structure was a big thing. And, at one point you've got your CTO team and your CIO team, but actually when you're looking at sort of IoT, it's bringing those both together. And yeah, I think as they bring in more expertise kind of on the ground, then the folks kind of at the higher level definitely need to understand exactly what they're doing and what's involved.
Interesting. Yeah, that sort of, I guess that makes sense. I think about, you just kind of mentioned like how every organization has that innovation org structure now embedded within them. So that's the strategic view forward, as well as the implementation and the modernization piece of it. So what are some of the primary industries then that you have either experienced yourself or that you've worked with, or the IoT consortium worked with? I can imagine things like retail, things like banking, manufacturing. Can you give us any like deeper dive into some of those verticals, those sectors?
Yeah, sure. So over the past few years, I guess when I started kind of running events in IoT, I was living in San Francisco, and it was kind of 6-7 years ago. So there was a lot going on around like wearables and connected home, because at that point that's where the technology was kind of more commercial and was actually implemented. But I think we've come a long way from talking about connected thermostats, because that's like not that exciting anymore, I suppose. But when you think about something like wearables now, I think they're going to come kind of full circle as being like a really hot application of IoT, particularly when you start thinking about COVID and things like contract tracing. So I know like the NFL and NBA are using wearables to track social distancing, enable contact tracing. I think what's quite interesting and what I'm looking a bit more at is where this technology is going to kind of, there's going to be new use cases basically to mitigate the impact of COVID. So when you think about wearables, we're not just talking about fitness trackers anymore, although I think now there might be more of a consciousness around, health and wellness, and obviously having your Fitbit or your Apple Watch, that might kick off a lot of kind of innovation in that space. But yeah, I think the contract tracing thing is, when you think about wearables, is something that's going to be super hot. I also been thinking about wearables in more of the manufacturing setting. So I was reading something the other day, and it was just basically about kind of the impact of COVID on the manufacturing industry, and obviously how production systems globally have kind of taken a hit because, lots of factories had to close, but then demand for essential goods was going up. And people needed things a lot quicker. So you start to look at kind of, okay, there's been a lot of talk about Industry 4.0 and, industrial IoT and whatever you want to call it. And I feel like companies have been talking about this for a long time, but actually implementing IoT technology or any sorts of, I guess, emerging or connected technology in a factory setting or in your supply chain is going to really enhance your processes, improve efficiencies. But also, I think what's really big now is obviously looking after your workforce as people are returning back to work, and whether there's a way of kind of bringing wearables into that so people can be kind of managed a lot better and remotely. I wonder whether that's going to be a new area as well. But the manufacturing setting and industry just in general, I used to run a big event in Germany actually, where obviously there's a huge manufacturing industry and there's a lot going on with Industry 4.0. So whether you're talking about predictive maintenance, remote asset tracking, digital twin technology, additive manufacturing, which is effectively 3D printing in a factory. There's so much opportunity, I think, for a lot of this tech in a factory setting. So there's some cool applications there.
I think you're segueing.
Sorry, I have to ask. Digital twin? What exactly is a digital twin? Is it what I'm thinking?
What are you thinking? Probably yes.
Well, I'm thinking about cloning myself, and then I can get twice as much done. Isn't that a digital twin?
It would more be cloning yourself and then testing things on your digital twin before doing them on yourself to see how you.
I'm out then. I'll forget that.
Obviously, we're talking about
No.
We have a question.
Not a human being. But yeah, it's effectively kind of a virtual or digital replica of a physical asset.
Right on.
So yeah, there's loads of cool stuff going on in factories, but I think the uptake hasn't been as quick as it could have been. But I do wonder whether COVID and the pressures that this sector has faced might spur and accelerate a lot of these sorts of technologies that have been talked about for a while. But yeah, and then things like I've been thinking a lot about retail. Obviously retailers have taken a hit over the last few months. But things like contactless payments, I think that's, we're already doing a lot of it. But if you start thinking about just touchless and contactless technology as a whole, I think, retail is something which, there's a big opportunity for this sort of technology. In the IoT London meetup last month, we featured a company called Ultraleap, and they do a lot on haptics and gesture control technology. So they're creating like kiosks in cinemas, in malls, in stores, airports, where it's all, you can navigate and order whatever you need without having to touch anything. I think that might be something worth, keeping an eye on. I know things like, obviously now more people are moving to online than in store, inevitably, because we have to. But things like curbside delivery and kind of optimizing those processes, I don't think the systems were in place for the demand that's obviously come about over the last few months. But I don't think we'll necessarily go back to the norm as such if things go back to whatever is normal. I think the new normal will be different when things like that and consumers' trends will change and they might stick. So things like curbside delivery, automated checkouts, personalized and location-based technology, supply chain optimization, like I said, contactless payments. I think a lot of these things retailers are looking at now, but I think will be kind of a longer term impact as well.
Interesting. Yeah. I want to come back around. I see that we had a question come in from the audience. Dominie, I don't know if you can see it as well. It's down
actually
at the bottom.
I have a similar question, so if you don't mind, I can kind of segue because
go ahead.
Dominie did cover this huge gamut of things that are interesting, trends that are going on, and I agree with our viewer here. It just seems like everything's so easy to hype. To ask a similar question of what's exciting now, I want to add on to that question of what's standing out to you as someone who's seeing all these trends emerge. You're reading the reports, you're seeing the data. What's actually substantially moving and has potential?
I think I think the future of work will change. I think there's obviously a lot of technologies that might kind of lead into this, but I think how people work and interact in the work environment is going to change and potentially stick. I read something about how offices are starting. A lot of companies are looking at kind of relocating their head offices from inner cities to like suburbs. And that's obviously going to have a huge impact on smart cities and transportation and public transit and things like that. So I think whatever that future of work looks like after COVID, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for technology to kind of make an impact there. And like I said, I've talked about it a few times, but I do think kind of contactless technology, whether you're talking about retail, whether you're talking about a kiosk in an airport, whether you're talking about, you know, a public transit, you know, train station or bus terminal, or contactless payments. I just think touchless technology is going to really be. I think I saw something about like touchless toilet seats and things like that. Like I think more people now are obviously going to be very hygiene aware. And
add it to the demo.
Yeah, hold on a minute. I don't know, Andrew. I don't know if we want to go down that rabbit hole.
Well, I mean, just the diagram would be nice. I'm just like, how does that work?
Yeah, we better leave that one alone. But a
technical diagram. Sorry, let me be very specific.
I totally forgot about that when we were talking before the call. But yeah, I'll have to dig that out and share it with you. I definitely saw it.
It wouldn't be the first time that IoT Happy Hour went into a bathroom, I guess.
Yeah, no, we have taken a robot into a bathroom previously, Dominie. You know, as the IoT as the IoT London organizer, I'm not sure. I know that you just recently took that role on, but if you know the crew up at IoT Liverpool, they've been on the show with us before and taken us around their makerspace there. And they have a robot, which is essentially an iPad on a stick, but it's made by a brand called Double. So it's a double robot is the name of this thing. Mm-hmm. And Matthew up there, one of our great community members, was driving it around the makerspace remotely. He was at his home, and it's, you know, internet connected. And so you can drive it around remotely. So he's driving the robot around the makerspace, and we needed to be able to see what the robot looked like. So he had to go into the bathroom.
His coworker did. You're missing a layer.
On a mirror.
You're missing the layer of they only allow one person in at a time. So the robot was interfacing with this random coworker who was allowing us to drive the robot into the bathroom, take the mirror off. Like it was. You'll have to see it.
To see the robot.
Yeah. Anyway,
a very awkward scenario right now.
Contactless bathroom usage, full circle. All right, let's move on.
There we go. I don't bathroom chat.
So yeah, I think you're right though. The touchless and the contactless stuff, I think, is probably really going to be on fire, if not already. Mm-hmm. I mean, I experience it, right? I go to the store. I don't want to touch the payment thing, put my credit card in, or kiosks. Yeah, I haven't flown yet as a result of this, but yeah, everything is all check in on that. It's just, so I can imagine that's going to be.
I think our mentality might have change. I think now, like, I don't know, I can't imagine like hugging someone random that not random, but we used to go to events, you'd shake hands with everyone, you would and things like, we're so much more aware of that now, that I think it's a shift in consumer mindsets. So there's obviously going to have to be technology that really meets that shift. Another thing that I was thinking about as well is like connected fitness. I don't know if that's what you'd call it, but like Lululemon just bought Mirror, who are those virtual personal trainer folks in a mirror. And like with Peloton, I think again, I'm a bit skeptical of going back to the gym. So people, but I don't really want a Peloton, but a lot of people do.
I read about that and I was thinking, yeah, if you're that type, you need extra motivation. Like mirrors, pretty cool. But what if you just need someone to tell you, hey, person, it's gonna be all right, right? So like the same idea, mirror somewhere, but then it's like, Andrew, nah, yeah, you deserve that cupcake.
Oh,
or like, no, man, you want that extra piece of pie? Go for it. Like, we're gonna enable you to just chill out a little more, right? So it's almost like the flip, but you're still using really, advanced embedded tech. It's just to help you be more sedentary.
Or you could have it in the toilet. You could have it. Remember to wash your hands.
Right back to the toilet.
There you go. Okay, that's actually really good. That's really good. Wash your hands, please. The water was not on for more than 20 seconds.
Yeah, a timer. You need a timer. So
actually, I have a different point.
Go ahead.
As Dominie was talking about how we're innovating on how to improve contactless experiences to mitigate exposure to disease. Maybe it's the region that I live in, Pacific Northwest here, but like I can't help but see my personal community and friends use it in a more insular. I don't know if insular is the correct word, but more like, how do we use technology to improve what's going on at the home, right? So not so much like, hey, how do I mitigate disease access, but hey, I've been taking what we have here for granted. How do we improve what's going on here with embedded tech? I wonder if you could speak a bit to that trend, because you're still utilizing the same, perhaps types of sensors, gadgetry, gear, and whatnot. But it's almost like for the folks who want to stay in place.
Yeah, well, I think because obviously so many of us, well, all of us, have been in our homes way more than we ever probably would have done. Like I remember reading something about more and more, there's much more kind of connected kitchen appliances, but also ways to enable you to, I can't remember what I read now, but it was like follow new recipes. So it was basically, gadgets in the home that would allow you to kind of learn how to cook, basically. So if you've got your gym in your home, you don't need to go out to restaurants anymore because you've got this fancy, connected chef effectively in your kitchen, virtual chef or whatever. I think you're right. I think as more people are in the home, I know from my family and friends, everyone's doing up their home, at some level. And I do think we are going to potentially be looking at kind of these technologies to enhance that home experience across, whether it's cooking, whether it's working out, all these things that we used to go out for, we're now obviously doing more and more in the home. But that's where obviously as well, you start to think about kind of network capacities and just connectivity, as we get more connected devices in the home, that's obviously going to have a big impact on networks.
Yeah, that's something that you also get into. I'm wondering if you have any context here. I saw Chris put in a comment that if his oven asks to join the Wi-Fi, it's getting evicted. And, I actually have that same perspective. And, maybe it's just me, my personality type. I don't know. But no, I was making fun of you for not having a connected refrigerator, but I don't have a connected refrigerator either. And quite honestly, I don't think I want one. And I don't want a connected oven, and I don't want a connected mixer, KitchenAid. I don't know. So like at what point, and I'm wondering if you've got any, experience here, do people start to push back on that? Does it just become extra burden, extra hassle? It's certainly extra burden on the network. I get that. But do you really want to troubleshoot every single kitchen appliance? Is that something you've stumbled upon?
This seems slightly related to this user question too. So let's segue the two together, or dovetail the two together. So do you think more people will be interested in DIY around IoT devices over more commercial products? So kind of like in that vein of like, is it worth all the effort, right, David? That you're kind of hitting.
Yeah, it's right up the same now.
Yeah, I think that's why, like I said earlier on, there was so much hype around IoT and everyone was just thinking connected home and like more consumer basis. Whereas for me, when I look at, the bigger picture, I think the applications of this technology in like for an enterprise, for a city, for the public sector, for a factory, the the impact that the technology can have is so much more important than your oven talking to your kettle. And I think most people, this is a sweeping statement, but most people that I speak to have this sort of same reaction where we don't need that. Like, I know when I'm out of milk, I don't need my fridge to tell me. So yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah. I think any kind of perspective on that is nice to have. And it actually is leading me to another question I asked, because of all the industries that we talked about, we haven't really touched on education much. I know we're about like 13 minutes left here, so I don't want to open up a huge can of worms. But for me, education is a pretty big part of our world. We have a little one. We've been homeschooling for like 2 years now, and I've made a lot of technical changes around the house, and even like integrating tech outside, to make sure that my daughter can have a very like hands-on learning experience, whether it's taking things with her outside, or like being able to record things outside, or experiencing the real world, bringing it back, combining it with tech. I'm wondering what kind of trends are you seeing from an IoT standpoint that are helping out with education at all levels?
It's a good. To be honest, I don't know too much. I've not been. Do you mean in IoT devices enabling, better education of children, or do you mean children interacting with?
It could be either. It could be the network support that you're talking about. We have this really great project that we're still finalizing, that's done by Phil Wilson, one of our great hardware hackers here at Balena, and he basically is empowering his children to go out and really experience their Montessori style of learning around the house, and he's doing it by utilizing Raspberry Pis to extend Wi-Fi signal around his garden, to play audio, to keep the kiddos immersed and stimulated, things like that, right? Like, I know that's a kind of a edge case, but I'm wondering if you've seen anything similar pop up from more of like a meta level.
Yeah, no, I haven't. To be honest, I've not seen too much on the education side. I totally get. Obviously at the moment there's a huge need for like remote learning and things like that, and I think it's really important for children to be engaged in technology, because obviously that's the future, and it's only going to get more and more than it is now. And I definitely think kids will have a much better understanding of hardware and software than I do, and I think that's important. But I also do worry about kids being a bit too immersed in technology. Like I don't have children, but I've got friends that have children that speak to Siri as if it's like their best friend. Or I've actually got one friend's child who pronounces certain words like Alexa and not like her parents. And I get
oh man.
But I kind of get it as well, like how it comes out.
Yeah, my kids are young as well, so I can only imagine what's in store. But I actually have a follow-up question then that piggybacks off of Andrew's. And this might be a little bit of a curveball, but education then kind of reminds me of government. And are you seeing any use cases around government? Have you seen any uptake there? I'm curious for your answer first, and then I'll share a story.
Okay. I mean, obviously, yeah, I mean, definitely, whether you're talking about municipal level or, national, federal level in the US, I think the government are always faced with so many challenges. And I think sometimes, particularly if you look at, going right down to like smart cities, if you're trying to manage public transit or your road networks, or just your citizens, I think there's a big opportunity for technology to help manage and maybe make a lot of those systems a lot more effective. One use case actually that I was thinking about the other day was, I remember meeting with the Department of Homeland Security. They've always been very involved in utilizing connected technology, and I remember them showing me a firefighter helmet that kind of had that was an IoT connected device effectively, and it would have alerts within the helmet and within the glass screen, and that would alert the firefighter if there was any, if it was getting too hot or too smoky, or there was just whatever dangers and risks there was, and that was always like, that's a wearable effectively. But I think that's kind of going back to what I said earlier. When you think about wearables, it's a lot more than just your Fitbit. So I think when you look at the different, when you look at public safety or public response, I think this is where the technology really can make the most impact, I think.
Yeah, that comes back around to exactly like you were saying, where, the impact of an oven that talks to a kettle, like, really, who cares? That doesn't, that doesn't change the world. But having
that kettle's a sous vide and they're roasted vegetables in the oven, then yes, David, I do care.
You do. All right, fair enough. But yeah, now something like you're describing, wearables in that manner of, a firefighter with his helmet with a full heads-up display that can, render things in real time. That's a game changer. Absolutely.
Yeah. That was something that it was a couple of years ago, and I think it was at CES, and I remember going from there. They had like a stand, and then I remember going to the Panasonic stand, and they had a mirror that like changed my hair color, and I was like, this is also cool, but.
Yeah, one of the things, so I did spend a couple of years working for government here at the state level. And I'm in Arizona, and that is a big geographic territory. And one of the things that always kind of made me stop and think was a lot of the Bureau of Land Management work that is done here, a lot of the wildlife preservation and conservation work, lakes, rivers, things like that. All of those types of, I guess, they go out and inspect, right? And take counts and do things that could be augmented quite easily by IoT, but they don't really have that innovative mindset or internal innovation organization like we talked about earlier that you described that private sector has. So, here they are driving around all over the state for days on end just to collect a couple of samples that could have been done, rather easily in an automated fashion, or, data collected via IoT objects. Another one that kind of always fascinated me was pipeline safety, pipeline inspection, railroad inspection. They would drive hundreds of miles of pipeline and railroad. That, I get it, it needs to be done, but I mean, you could just send a drone that flies the track and captures the whole thing. So I was just curious if you had seen any progress or momentum there. But
I remember working with a guy a few years ago who was doing stuff with pipelines. But you just reminded me actually of a conversation I'd had recently, and I won't say who it was with or
no, that's fine, no.
But
who was it with? Just kidding.
It was David.
It was me.
But they were saying it. I think it kind of hit home a little bit. Was it's very hard for certain industries to attract talent, and by talent I mean the tech guys, because firstly they probably can't pay as much as Amazon or Uber or a tech company, but also they don't offer maybe the same incentives, or it's not quite as like jazzy to be a part of kind of, I don't know, a pipeline organization or group or something. So it does make me think like there is a huge opportunity, I think, for technology to really transform these industries. But one, I think there'll be a lot of potential backlash from people kind of saying, is this going to take other jobs? And two, are they able to, are they in a position to find the right talent in the first place? So yeah, I don't have any specific use cases that I can talk to. I know, when you think about like smart grids and stuff, there's loads going on in the like energy and utility space. But I think when you think of like waste management, water management, just environmental management systems in general, there's definitely a big opportunity. But I think one of the things that might be holding those sectors back, and I don't know if this is true, might just be that hiring piece.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's probably another argument that could also be made, and I don't know if it's valid or not. But let's say you are doing that wildlife preservation role? Is it really that you should be developing the IoT technology yourself as the government agency, or is it the job of the machine learning camera manufacturer? And there's some really cool ones on the market, right? That do all of that, just edge CV turnkey system. Maybe they should be selling to the government agencies, but that's a whole different ball game. So, all right. Well,
there's a team at Department of Homeland Security. Just going back to them, the science and technology team, and they're really innovative. They're like one of the departments that I've always kind of kept in touch with over the years, and they're always looking for an innovation, I guess. So if anyone listening is kind of involved in that area, I'm sure they'd love to hear from you. You can just drop me an email if you want an introduction or something.
Awesome. Yeah, let me get your contact info back on the screen because, as we said at the top of the show, for anyone who joined late, if you have any questions or want to follow up with Dominie at all, by all means, let's get her contact info back. Oh, hang on a minute. Did we have a question come in? I also want to
solid comment.
Yeah, while connected home devices may seem uninteresting, most of the real world applications we could changing the mindsets of everyday people. Yeah, that is true as well. I mean,
yep, I grow vegetables in my garage. What's next?
Well, connected oven is next. But that completes the circle then from grow to cook. But let's get real quick. There is Dominie's contact information back on screen. And I want to just take a quick glance at the clock, knowing that we're coming up on the top of the hour. Anything else, Dominie, that you want to share? We'll get a plug in for IoT London in a moment, but is there anything else that we didn't quite make it to?
Or from the audience, if you have any questions, last minute ones for Dominie.
Yep.
Yeah, send them over. I guess one thing that I know, David, you and I had kind of spoken about is any kind of key trends or differences that I was seeing between my time in San Francisco, the work that I've done in New York, and obviously now being kind of involved in London and kind of the startup scene here. But I think what is interesting is, the West Coast has always been like the hub and where a lot of the majority of investments in IoT startups has always taken place. But now I think, particularly with what's happening over the next few years, and this is based on just some conversations that I had this week with investors, there's definitely a shift towards more distributed teams. So, I mean, balena is a great example. Like, you guys are all over the place. You've got people in Europe, people across the US. I think that's definitely kind of becoming more and more of the norm. And I think New York is slowly becoming more of a tech hub now, which obviously makes sense because, there's so many sectors there and so much talent there. But I think, apparently what I heard was it was slower than anticipated for that East Coast kind of hub to come about. So I thought that was quite interesting. But one of the key things that I also I've learned this week was, and it may be obvious really, but the West Coast investments traditionally have been more like deeper tech, enterprise and kind of social. Whereas on the East Coast, it's definitely more around, the finance, the marketing technology, and consumer goods. So that was just something that, again, because I was having a couple of conversations with investors this week, that kind of came to light. And it might be obvious, but I thought I'd share it now if anyone was kind of interested. But
that makes sense now that you have explained it and said it, but I wouldn't have thought about it or realized it myself. Yeah.
That's what, as I was kind of saying it, I was like, it kind of seems obvious, but I think it's always good to sometimes reiterate the obvious. And then also, just based on another conversation I'd had this week, was just helping startups, I guess, to grow and attract investment or find partnerships. And I think, the events of the last few months has really shone the light, I should say, a lot more on diversity. And just from a conversation I had this morning with a consultant in this space, I think startups also really need to kind of be thinking about that diverse workforce if they're wanting to scale or attract investment or find partnerships. I think that's something that investors are really starting to look at. So again, I don't know if any startups at that level are listening, but I just thought I'd share those kind of points because they really stood out to me and kind of conversations I've had just this week. If that's helpful.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I mean, I'm sure that that's actually really helpful for members of our audience. So there you have it, folks. Yeah. If you have any questions, reach out to Dominie. You can see her contact info is on there. But that's very helpful and a lot of really good insight.
Thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna have you back after you get that Inky shot built.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Give me a deadline because I definitely I need Kat's expertise. I think.
Yeah, we'll have to amass a bunch of people who don't have it built yet. I mean, I just ordered some parts for it. We could do like another group build, or really likes doing that.
A group build show. Get everybody that has the parts but has not fully assembled it yet, and do a mass building party. We could do that.
Yeah.
And then we can share ideas for the quotes and things like that, and we can try and get David to change his.
No, not happening. I'll order more parts before I'm changing that one. Absolutely not.
Oh, we have a last minute question coming in here.
Oh, do we have something come in?
Yeah, let's address this.
Any way to get balena sound on a Pi running other projects or as a standalone Docker container?
You can do a multi-project, right?
Yeah, you can do multi-project. Let me
that post in here.
Yeah, if you want to go. Yeah, Andrew, if you grab that blog post, it would have the info on how to set that up. It might need to be adapted specific to balena sound, although I don't think so. Yeah, RPi is a multi-tool. Yeah, Chris has got the...
Oh, he beat me to it. No, he didn't link it.
No, he didn't link it.
Oh, yeah.
There it is. 2 projects, 1 device.
There you go.
Multi-tool. That's the name of it.
Try that out. If not that, head over to the forums. We're always ready to help folks out. So.
Yep, absolutely. Let us know how that goes over in the forums. Let me drop a link.
This is the same guide that Phil is using to combine balena sound with the Wi-Fi extender project. So not to be confused with balena's Wi-Fi Connect, but we have this separate project.
The repeater.
Yeah, where you can extend. I mean, you can buy them off the shelf, but it is kind of nice to be able to DIY it for yourself. You have full control over security parameters, etc. So
yeah. And then if you have any questions, just drop them in the forums. We can certainly help. All right. Well, thank you, Dominie. Really appreciate you taking the time during your actual real happy hour over there.
No, my real happy hour can start now, I think. Although, the sun's gone in here in London, but that's fine. It was too hot today. So, but no, thanks, guys. This was a lot of fun. Hopefully you'll have me back.
Yeah, definitely.
We absolutely will. And one last plug, by all means, go to IoT.London and sign up for the newsletter. There it is right there.
Our next meetup's on Tuesday the 18th. And we have Verizon, JHD hair straighteners, and Hither Ventures. So that should be a cool session. So it's 7 p.m. UK time on Tuesday the 18th. So if you go to the website, you can sign up there. So I'd love to see as many of you.
All right.
Very cool.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your days.
See you later.
Yep. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Stay safe.
Bye.